everybody. So, e-scooters, the little electric scooters that you see people using to get around town and you see kids out and about on. I want to talk about those a little bit because it's an interesting discussion, and I think there is some sides to it that, well, I only recently discovered, and it makes perfect sense, but my God, I'm not sure if everyone's aware of it, but I'll get onto that in a minute. So the e-scooters in the UK, to my understanding, are completely illegal everywhere but on private land, unless it's been rented through this system, which is basically trialling whether they work in the UK. As a device, as a thing, forgetting all the legal sides and all that sort of stuff, I actually really quite like the little scooters. I think they're quite a cool idea. I doubt they probably make one big enough for me, but I'm not really looking to use one for one of the reasons I'll get into in a minute. So I'm not a hater of these things, just to make it clear here, but I am concerned about them. I don't know what's going to happen with them, because if everyone decides to get one of these little scooters, going on what I've seen locally, it's going to get pretty nasty pretty quickly, and I mean as in people getting hurt. Reason I say that is that I've never seen someone wearing a helmet with one, and if you come off at 15 miles an hour, you know, you hit something and you deck it, you face plant into the ground at that speed, that's some serious head injuries going on right there. But then the same can be said for a bicycle, but then you're supposed to wear a helmet on a bicycle. But the big concern that I've noticed is the amount of people are buying them for their kids. I mean, if the kids are using on the pavement, even though it's illegal and they're not, you know, going too quick or anything, I don't really have that much of an issue with them. But when you see them literally driving down the middle of the road or pulling across like a T-junction, and you can see that they literally did not look left, did not look right, just went straight over, and you know that if someone keeps doing that, it is only statistically an amount of time before they are going to get annihilated by a car. You know, it just feels like a matter of time, definitely locally. Like, the more and more I see kids out on them, I feel like it's only going to be a matter of time before someone knocks a kid off of one of them, and then who knows what will happen. And the thing that I didn't realise that makes perfect sense is, well, you see, the legality problem is this: they're powered, as I get it. And that means basically it classes as a vehicle that if it's used on the road, you should have a provisional licence, probably a CBT or something like that. Insurance, safety equipment, things like that. If it's going to be taken seriously as a real vehicle in the sense of like mopeds and scooters, in those senses, then it's going to be just the same as a motorcycle. And for that same reason, if you don't have a license to use one, you can be in trouble for driving a vehicle you don't have a license to use. You know, in the same way that if you have a car and you jump on a 1000cc bike with no bike license, you can get points on your driving license, or if you're speeding on your bike and you have a car license, it crosses over. If you're riding one of these scooters on the public highway, they can actually do you for like not having a license or any of those other things to go with it. Whether there's even place to have that or not, they can still do you for it, and you get points on your license. I think it's something like a £300 fine and up to 6 points, which is obviously not something that you want in response to riding a 15-mile-an-hour electric scooter. I mean, let's face it, if you were pushing it with your foot, you're probably going a little bit slower, but you know, it's not that too dissimilar. And I do think this is where the laws are going to have to maybe come in place and create, I don't know, a small personal vehicle allowance type thing, where up to a certain speed, up to a certain power or something, that people can use them to get around and there's no licensing required. But until they make that rule that exempts them from all the other things, it's not going to happen. And still, even if they did, I don't see them allowing people to drive them on the road, because, well, they're pretty dangerous on the road. They're not that quick. People will try and overtake you very close, but then you can't use them on the pavement because, you know, well, there's pedestrians there and they don't really want you running into them. This is why I'm a little bit stuck with these, because on one side, for like someone like me to jump on one of these little electric scooters to nip to the shop, absolutely great. I feel like I could definitely do that safely, as could many other people. However, the fact that loads of kids are getting on them makes me think, well, this isn't such a good idea. You know, I mean, if they had any idea of, you know, road sense and followed the rules and didn't put themselves in danger, again, I wouldn't probably have a problem with it. But it's because I basically see people allowing their kids out on these things, and it's like, I'm not sure they're as intelligent or as switched on as you think they are going on what they've just done on the public highway. So the idea of them being legal, I'm like, yeah, that's cool, but then I think about how many people might have one of them then. Just how many of these things there's going to be around. Forgetting like the private hire ones, just ones that people have got on their own. That's just going to be a bit of a nightmare. There is another side to this that I've seen quite a bit recently, which is kids taking them into shops. Not always riding them, sometimes just pushing them, but actually taking them into the shop because they don't want to leave them outside, and because they can get stolen. But you can't take a push bike inside a shop. It's I don't know. It just seems bizarre to me that someone would think, oh yeah, that's fine. I'll just push this inside the shop and get in everyone's way with it, so it doesn't get nicked. So basically, I'm left feeling like, yeah, I like them. I think they should become a thing, but they need to be legislated. They need to be controlled. And then I'm like, oh Jesus, they're just going to make people jump through the most ridiculous hoops and just ruin it. It won't be sensible. But then you have to make the rules for the most idiotic people. I don't envy lawmakers who have to try and take what's come before, and then with the new technology that's just come along. Well, it's not that new. It's like we used to have push-along ones when I was younger, but because of the motorised aspect of it, it's now classed as a new thing, and it involves itself in a load of other laws and legislation and stuff to keep up with. So I don't know. I'm really very much lost on this. I know there's a lot of people who are very pro electric scooters because they want to use them basically, and I can see where you're coming from. But I've also, I've followed some of these sort of discussions that have been out there, and I find that quite a lot of the ones who want the scooters to be, pro-scooter, just basically say, hey, just leave us alone, man. We're not doing anyone harm, and that's the argument. And it's like, well, that's great and everything, but it still falls into laws that pre-exist. And if you're going to say, well, just ignore this, then why are we chasing 16-year-olds to do CBTs, I mean, that's another thing. The electric scooters would most likely be age restricted. As in, you'd have to be 16 to ride one. And as I say, most of the people I see using these are under the age of 16. Some of them are under the age of 10. So if someone said to me, right, what should we do about the laws to do with these things? I don't know, because on one hand, I'd like it to be simple and just say this, but then you can't because of all of the caveats and the stuff attached to it and the things that it will mean. So I'm going to hand this one over to the audience. I'm interested to know what the general public think. What do you think? Do you like e-scooters? Would you be happy for people to use them if they were regulated and licensed? Do you think they shouldn't have licenses at all? But then how does that, what do we then do about other people who are being forced to do CBTs and stuff for something that's basically the same? All right, okay, it's not doing the same speeds, blah, 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 but you know what I'm saying. I mean, we have kind of seen this in the past with the hoverboards. But then, China started making a load of cheap ones. The 18650 started exploding in them. And that kind of ended the hoverboards because people were terrified. Or that's at least the way I saw it. People became terrified they were about to burn their houses down and they didn't know which ones they could and couldn't trust, so it just stopped it. I've not seen that happen with these e-scooters yet, but I'm sure it will. If they legalise them, then you're going to have cheaper and cheaper and cheaper ones being made until you have ones that have cheap batteries, dodgy, workmanship, no proper protection circuitry on the batteries, and then you've got self-combusting scooters that are going to burn houses down. It's all just down to how it was made, who made it, and whether they actually designed it properly or whether they just designed a product to sell. But then again, you find people allowing their kids to play football in the middle of a 40-mile-an-hour road, and you're like, well, of course people would do this. Why wouldn't they? So yeah, let me know what you think. I'm actually genuinely interested as to if anyone's got a good idea as to how this can be dealt with, or how they think it's going to be dealt with in the future. It'll be very interesting. Please hit that like button if you would, and I will catch you in the next one. I will just say here, for the dozen or so companies that have emailed me trying to get me to review these scooters while they're illegal, I'm not going to, and I'm not interested until they are. So please don't email me asking me to review something like this. I won't. Okay? Bye.